This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
I largely try to keep the show non-political because there are so many other talk shows that cover politics that I really feel like people could use some other options and a little bit of a break. And there's so many things, and I'd really like to bring the country together on cultural issues, on pop cultural issues, entertainment, other sorts of issues, rather than focus on the divisiveness of politics. However, when there's a political story that catches my attention, I am happy to share it with you. And this weekend, the Republican Party released its campaign platform. This is the first time the party released a party platform since 2016. Now, just to give you, not that my politics make the difference of a hill of beans, but I've never been a Republican. And a good portion of the reason that I've never been a Republican is because I think on social issues, the party is not at all where I am on most social issues. Obviously, when it comes to social issues, the question really has changed with this era of wokeness and everything that we're in now. So I don't even know what a social issue is these days. But historically, the party really has not been where I am. Additionally, on economic issues, I am not at all for that, George W. Bush style economic philosophy of wars and tax cuts. Not for me. I mean, I'd take a tax cut over a tax increase any day of the week, but I like being a deficit hawk. One of the things I found so appealing about Ross Perot's candidacy. And honestly, the addiction that both parties have had over the last 35 years to free trade and these reckless free trade agreements is just anathema to everything that I believe in. And it's kind of a big part of the reason that I fell so hard for Trump in 2016 as a candidate. Now, as a president, he was a little bit different. But as a candidate, he was speaking my language on really just about every issue. Trade, war, didn't get crazy in terms of what bathroom people wanted to use, didn't get crazy if two gay people wanted to get married. This was my kind of Republican. And my hope was that the Republican Party would move into a more Trumpian direction. And after looking at this platform, it really has. This document, titled 2024 GOP Platform Make America Great Again, I read through it. It includes 20 promises and 10 chapters outlining the governing priorities for a Republican president. Typically, the Republican and Democratic parties release their platforms ahead of their national conventions, and this year's release precedes the GOP National Convention in Milwaukee, which starts on July 15th, just a few days from now. So the platform's 10 chapters focus on inflation, the border, economic prosperity, the American dream, manufacturing, protecting seniors, schools, common sense governance, constitutional government, and peace through strength. Additionally, the 20 promises listed in the preamble address some specific positions, like eliminating taxes on tips, keeping the dollar as the world reserve currency, and building a U.S. missile defense system similar to what Israel has with the Iron Dome. In 2020, the Republican Party didn't even publish a platform document, which was a big break from what they had done every 4 years and was a big source of criticism. Like the last GOP platform 8 years ago, this year's version focuses on some, longstanding conservative priorities of energy independence, foreign policy centered on strength, things like that. But I have to tell you, after reading this, it differs significantly in a few key areas. The 16-page 2024 platform is much less detailed than its predecessors. This is 16 pages. In 2016, it was 66 pages. In 1980, it was 75 pages. The thing that is most interesting about this, though, is the party's stance on abortion, which has changed from calls for federal restrictions on abortion or a national abortion ban to a focus on letting states decide. This is the most moderate GOP platform on abortion that we've seen in decades. This is the title of the portion on abortion. Republicans will protect and defend a vote of the people from within the states on the issue of life. See, in years past, it would always say something like, we will protect the rights of the unborn. It doesn't say that anymore. It says Republicans will protect and defend a vote of the people from within the states on the issue of life. Very much a movement towards states' rights. It also outlined the party's opposition to late-term abortion and its support for access to both in vitro fertilization and to birth control. I have to tell you, the stance of some social conservatives, like Republican Congressman Matt Rosendale, who is taking this anti-IVF issue and just going crazy with it. He's putting anti-IVF posters outside of his office in Congress. And even the Pope has come out strongly against IVF. I don't support that at all, meaning the opposition to IVF. I have a lot of friends that have, and family actually, that have gone through the IVF process to conceive, and they have wonderful children and wonderful families because of it. I really don't understand why anyone would want to deny any family the opportunity to create life this way. And I am glad to see that this GOP platform supports IVF. I think it's an important thing. So as soon as it was published, many Republicans began touting this new agenda. On his social media website, Truth Social, former President Trump expressed his support, writing, "Ours is a forward-looking agenda with strong promises that will accomplish very quickly when we win the White House and Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. We are, quite simply, the party of common sense." However, some Republicans were dismayed by both the process of how this platform came to be, as well as the platform's new position on abortion. Gail Ruzicka, a Republican National Committee member from Utah and the president of the conservative lobbying group Utah Eagle Forum, she said, "They rolled us. That's what they did. I've never seen this happen before. I don't understand why they did it, and I'm extremely disappointed that we do not have any pro-life language." And I'd love to ask you, I'll tell you what I don't want to do. I do not want to get into a discussion or a debate about whether abortion should be legal or not. I'm not doing that right now. It's death to radio. What I would like to know, if you're a social conservative and you're pro-life, how do you feel about this? Because I could see it both ways, right? If you're a pro-life conservative that views Donald Trump as a guy that did the right thing in terms of appointing justices to the Supreme Court and things of that nature, I could see you being happy, because if the Republican Party takes this stance in its platform, it's more likely that they're going to win elections, because the party's stance on abortion has cost it the last 3 election cycles. So I could also see you being unhappy with it, because after all, maybe part of the reason you're a Republican is because you want abortion to be illegal. You're pro-life. So I'd love to know how you feel about this. 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. Now, the right, for the most part, supports this platform, even with some criticizing the moderated language on abortion. The left is very critical of the platform, basically calling it a laundry list of Trump priorities. And they're saying that the Republican agenda is out of step with what most Americans want. And a lot of people, and I think honestly, this is kind of a valid criticism. Others are saying that the moderated, the newly moderated language on abortion is a facade, that it's not real. Like they're just saying this to win over swing voters when they're just going to govern in a very reactionary way and just continue to appoint more anti-abortion justices. I think, it's interesting because this platform is more Trumpian than ever. It's really even written in his voice. I think there's a lot of good in this. There's also a lot of bombast in here, which is not surprising given, how Trump communicates. But a lot of the focus has been on abortion. I'll tell you, the only person I've seen bring this up is Isaac Saul, who's been a guest on this show in the Tangle newsletter. One of the other takeaways to me is how similar the Democratic and Republican platforms are becoming. And, it's really interesting, given how divided Republicans and Democrats are at this point, how similar certain priorities are in each of their platform documents. So the platform lays out 20 promises and 10 chapters about those promises. And, you got seal the border and stop the migrant invasion, carry out the largest deportation in American history, end inflation, make America affordable again, make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far, stop outsourcing and turn the U.S. into a manufacturing superpower, large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to keep and bear arms, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country, all made in America. End the weaponization of government against the American people, stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels. I'm not gonna read all 20 of these because and there's a lot here. But all of these promises are very Trumpian, big, bold ideas that in a lot of cases are widely supported by the vast majority of Americans. For instance, do you know anybody that doesn't want a secure border? Of course not. But a lot of them are obviously pretty vague. And in some cases, they're really just not realistic at all. And they're very strongman in their attitude, like promising to punish protesters or conduct the largest mass deportation in history. So other elements of this platform, though, sound exactly like Democratic Party priorities. Most notable is the shift on abortion, which a lot of writers have covered, right? The platform explicitly supports birth control and IVF and abandons a call for federal abortion restrictions. But it also calls for increasing housing affordability by streamlining permits for new construction, making affordable education more available, and saving the American auto industry. The economist Noah Smith called those positions, and I think he's right, very Clintonian. And the platform obviously has its issues, but in one sense, I think it's great that there's so much bipartisan consensus on things like boosting energy supply or expanding the child tax credit, which Biden and the congressional Democrats tried to do, but they were actually stopped by the Republicans. It's interesting to see that in this platform. Increasing educational opportunities outside of traditional four-year colleges. We talk about that all the time with the opportunities for trade schools. But it's also a little frustrating because if Republicans and Democrats really do have the same ideas to address these same big issues, they can act on them now. We don't need to wait until the next president's elected. If they really do buy all this stuff, let's start passing legislation. But on paper, if not in reality, Republicans and Democrats are getting closer on a lot of major issues the country is facing. abortion we mentioned, but energy, education, housing, trade. And I think it's interesting. I happen to support a lot of these positions. So I'm actually pleased to see that they're moderating on a lot of these, both parties. And I'm happy to see, by the same token, the Democrats becoming more Trumpian on issues like tariffs, right? So I do like that. Now, so I tweeted about this earlier. And I said, regardless of what you think of Donald Trump, because I'm not, so I'm not planning to vote for President Trump this year. But I said, irrespective of how you feel about President Trump, I think this kind of platform is a huge step in the right direction. I think the changes they have made are exactly the sort of changes that should have been made years ago and might appeal to moderates. So enter Debbie Schlussel. Debbie Schlussel jumps on this tweet and says, does Amber Rose appeal to moderates? And here's a little confession. Prior to 3 days ago, I had no idea who Amber Rose was. But apparently she's one of many pop cultural figures who's very famous that I should know. And I just have no idea who she is. Apparently she used to date Kanye West. And, oh, by the way, Debbie Schlussel in this tweet of hers, and you can see it on my Twitter at Frank Morano, Frank Morano, includes a topless photo of Debbie Schlussel that she, that's a posed topless photo, because I guess this is the kind of thing she does. She poses in topless photos. So she rose to fame after dating Kanye West. And she is now supporting President Trump. She released a video in which she said, well, I'll play you a clip of the video, but she is, I don't even know 100% what she is, why she's famous. I don't know if she's a model or an adult film actress or a hip hop star. I really am not clear on what she's famous for other than having dated Kanye West. Matt Blaze, do you know anything about Amber Rose?
Yeah, she was a model before Kanye West, and then she's dated Kanye and other rap figures and other celebrities. She was more like, I would say, a D-list, maybe E-list type of celebrity. I wouldn't say she's very famous. Most people probably don't know who she is, but I have to correct you. You said Debbie Schlussel posting topless photos.
Yes, Debbie Schlussel posted the topless photo of Amber Rose.
Oh, but the way it sounded like what Debbie Schlussel was posting.
No.
Topless photo.
Please. So I'd love to see a topless photo of Debbie Schlussel. No, she posted a topless photo of Amber Rose asking the question, does Amber Rose appeal to moderates? And I said, I didn't think so, but I must admit, I do find this photo pretty appealing. And, she went to town on that. She clearly disagrees, right? She doesn't like Amber Rose, doesn't like Kanye West, doesn't like Donald Trump. And, I understand it. But here's a little bit of Amber Rose telling TMZ that she's no longer brainwashed on political issues.
So it seems like a lot of celebrities are kind of like voting for Trump now. I mean, why do you think people are kind of like changing their way of like...
I think we just did our research and we're just, we're not brainwashed anymore by the left. I can say that about myself. All these years I've been brainwashed and I'm not anymore.
So Amber Rose is a former stripper who has fiercely criticized President Trump in the past. She's speaking at the convention in Milwaukee. Born in Philadelphia, and as Matt alluded to, and Tony, if you know anything about Amber Rose and you want to add your 2 cents, please come in and offer it. She gained fame in 2008 after she appeared in the music video for rapper Young Jeezy's single Put On, and then she began dating Kanye West. In 2013, she married another rapper, Wiz Khalifa, and had a son by him before filing for divorce the following year. She's also the author of the book How to Be a Bad B-Word. She has modeled for Louis Vuitton, and she founded the LA chapter of the Slut Walk Feminist Protest March. So just as I have a question, there's some conservatives that are not happy that Amber Rose, of all the speakers that could speak, is speaking at the Republican convention in Milwaukee. But just as I have the question for social conservatives, how you feel about the party moderating its stance on abortion, I'd love to know, how do you feel about someone that was famous for being a stripper and dating an anti-Semitic rap star being featured so prominently in the convention? Let me know, because clearly Debbie's not happy, but she's not a Trump person anyway. 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. As I indicated, before her recent endorsement, she'd been an opponent of Trump, calling him a, quote, effing idiot in an interview in 2016, and saying that she really hopes he's not president. So is this in some ways just kind of being the big tent party and having a tent that's big enough for Amber Rose? Or is this, kind of doing whatever it takes to appeal to what you think black voters want and relate to? Because, love Trump or hate him, he is doing a lot better with black voters than he did 4 years ago. That's a fact. And I imagine unless Kamala Harris or Wes Moore is the nominee for president, he'll going to continue to put up pretty good numbers with black voters. Tony, you are our resident expert in being black. Give me your view of Amber Rose, and did you know who she was, first of all?
Yeah, I know who Amber Rose is. She dated Kanye West, and she was an aspiring rapper and actress, and she was also a stripper from Philadelphia.
Right, and so do people care that she's backing Donald Trump?
No, she's not relevant.
She's not relevant.
Yeah, she's not relevant. She hasn't been relevant in years.
Even when she was relevant, she wasn't really relevant.
Yeah. So is this kind of, do you think that maybe this is on her part a way to
gain attention?
Grab relevance?
Yeah, just to grab attention, to bring herself in the forefront.
All right. So this doesn't have much of an effect as far as you're concerned.
No.
All right. Well, so be it. Anything else we need to know about Amber Rose?
No, she has a tattoo over her forehead.
I saw that. I think it's disgusting. I hate that. Tattoo. Faces should not be tattooed.
One of my, as you could tell, I have 7 tattoos on my body, and my tattoo artist says he will not put a tattoo on anyone's face. Look, when I got these tattoos, I knew that they were going to be on for me for the rest of my life. Putting them on your face, that's stupid.
It's but aside from that, and maybe I've gotten kind of used to the Mike Tyson tribal tattoo. That's grown on me. But aside from that, it's just incredibly unattractive.
Yeah, thank you. It is
terrible.
Yes.
So there you go.
Okay.
It's a different party these days, not only in terms of a platform, but it's difficult for us to imagine how 20 years ago we would have seen someone with a former stripper with a tattoo on their face speaking at the Republican National Convention, right? I mean, maybe it's a good thing for the Republicans. Maybe, they've lost the Stormy Daniels vote. They've lost the vote of the adult film star community. Maybe this is their way of getting back, I don't know, the stripper vote. What do you think? 646-720-0635. Jacqueline in Brooklyn. I know you're a social conservative. What do you make of all this?
Well, my opinion, first of all, I am anti-abortion. I'm against abortion.
Sure, I know.
And when it comes to in vitro, maybe a lot of people don't realize this. I didn't realize this myself. I never really thought about it. All I thought about was preserving my ability to, at some point in the future, have a child when my body was no longer able to do it naturally. So I myself even went for freezing my eggs. And then I didn't do it. But what a lot of people don't realize is you are not only creating life, but you are also killing life at the same time, because oftentimes you have multiple eggs that are fertilized. Those are the most viable eggs, the ones that are fertilized. So you've created life. So you decide you're going to have 1 child, 2 children, 3, however many children you're going to have, and then the rest of them just wind up being garbage.
Understood. So I can understand then why you and the Pope might be against IVF. So if that's your view, What do you make of the GOP stating so strongly in their platform that they're for IVF?
Well, I think they're trying to, as you said before, as you pointed out before, the Democrats and the Republicans, the gap is narrowing now. And I think the Republicans realize that in order to stay viable, they have to kind of conform to what the general majority of the public wants. I don't agree with what they're doing, but I think they're making a practical decision as far as, staying alive.
Right. I think you might be right, Jacqueline. I think this is purely a political decision. I mean, thank you for the call. In political science, one of the first things you learn about political parties is that they exist to win elections. And I think the GOP, in moderating, at least publicly, is trying to win this election. Right. I think that's it. 646-720-0635. David, what do you think?
Yeah, good morning. Okay, this is window dressing. It's designed to make people forget about Project 2025, which is the real Republican agenda. They haven't changed their position on IVF or birth control or abortion. This is a smokescreen to fool people like you who apparently have been taken in by this. You can listen to these congressmen that have been talking about banning women from traveling from state to state and all this other stuff. They haven't changed their position. This is Donald Trump willing to say or do anything to get back into the White House. Once the Republicans have control of both houses of Congress and the presidency, then they can do whatever they really want to do and pass all these restrictive laws that were in their previous platforms. I'm seriously hoping that most people are not being fooled by this. If you want to know what the real Republican agenda is, read Project 2025 and don't pay attention
By the way,
to this watered
but
down
David, Trump has repudiated that Project 2025 agenda.
No. Listen. That is one of the biggest piles of horsepucky that there is.
Right, but understand what you're saying, David.
Project,
You're saying basically you ignore what the party claims that it stands for and ignore what Trump says he's against.
No. Listen to what the politicians in the Republican Party have been saying up until this week, okay, Frank? And you know for a fact that all those people involved in Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation, many of them have worked for Trump. Trump is very familiar with these people. He's promised to bring some of them into his next administration. This notion that these policies are not going to be enacted by him, that's laughable. And I'm surprised that you've been fooled by this, if you really have.
Well, I wouldn't say I've been fooled, right? I just think it's a step in the right direction on a lot of these issues.
Listen, if they want to win the election, you're right. But if you really believe this stuff, you can't be that naive. They've been pushing these policies for decades. They're not going to just suddenly change their mind in one election. This is all about winning the election.
All right. Well, you might be right, right? I mean, you might be right. I mean, they got to have, well, they don't have to have a platform, but, platforms is supposed to be a statement of what people believe in. And this is their statement to the public. So you could disbelieve it, as many people do. But I think, this is what, at least in part, you have to judge them on, right? They made the decision in years past to put a bunch of conservative stuff in that platform, presumably because a lot of them believed it, but also presumably because they thought it would win them votes. Now they're putting a lot of moderate stuff in here because they think that'll win them votes.
Yeah, Frank, but how are they really going to govern? And one last thing, because this is something that you should object to. This talk of a missile shield and peace through strength, you know what that means. You constantly rail against the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for him regardless. I mean, I think, and thanks, David, I think the people that he appointed to all the important positions in government over his 4 years, I mean, those are not the kind of people that I think should have any place in governing, for the most part, a couple of exceptions. And, the other thing that was frustrating to me about this platform is, do you know how many times the word debt appears in this GOP platform? Zero. The number of times the word debt appeared in the 2016 platform, 12. So the Republicans are not even pretending to care about debts or deficits anymore. Pretty soon, just the debt service that we spend on the debt is going to dwarf spending on everything else except the military, which is a pretty frightening thing. And yet we really don't see anything from the Democrats or the Republicans on this. All right. Comment if you like, 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Economists warn that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and 401k as the stock market braces for impact. I'm Larry Kudlow, and I urge you to fortify your savings with physical gold with my friends at Priority Gold. To learn how gold and silver can help diversify your savings, please call 1-800-405-GOLD or just visit PriorityGold.com to get a free gold information guide. That's 1-800-405-GOLD.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
A man walks down the street, he says, why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle? The rest of my life is so hard. I need a photo opportunity. I want a shot at redemption. Don't want to end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard. Bone digger, dogs in the moonlight. Far away, my well-lit door. Mr. Beer Melly, Beer Melly.
You can call me Al. This is another birthday bumper music selection by Tom Brodo, who some people believe looks like Harold Ramis. Other people believe looks like the most interesting man in the world. You judge for yourself. This is, of course, a Paul Simon classic. I'll never forget when George Pataki was running for governor in 94 in New York State, obviously. The Democrats were trying to portray him as just being a puppet of Al D'Amato. And they played this song in a series of commercials, basically just saying that he was D'Amato and you could call me Al. I thought it was pretty clever. Clearly not clever enough to win him the election, but clever enough. And I don't know if you ever saw the music video for this, but that is also really clever. Matt, have you seen the music video for this?
Yeah, this is one of the greatest music videos of all time.
And it's so simple. It's really just Chevy Chase dancing and hanging out. And this was when Chevy Chase was Chevy Chase. And it's really, really a terrific video. You know, I don't know what the deal is with Chevy Chase. Does he have some sort of health issue as far as you're aware, Matt?
Not that I know of. I just know that he was not very well liked in Hollywood at all.
I have heard
he's a big jerk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've heard about it. And I don't even think he runs away from that anymore. And he just, the few times that I've seen him recently, he has not looked good. He almost looks like, and I'm not trying to be anything but descriptive here, he looks like a less vigorous version of Dick Cheney. That's exactly what he looks like. So I'm a fan of his work, by the way. My wife and I just watched all the Fletch movies, including the recent one with John Hamm. I love the Vacation movies, loved him on Saturday Night Live, Caddyshack. I mean, you name it. If there's a Chevy Chase film. I even liked Cops and Robertsons, which nobody liked. Love all his stuff. But I did hear, you know, when I did the series of live events with William Shatner, I did hear from the people that run that company. I asked about the different celebrities that they've worked with and who was really nice to deal with, who was not so nice. They said that Chevy Chase was not nice at all to deal with, and was kind of a jerk, which didn't really surprise me, honestly, because you hear sometimes you hear a celebrity is super nice, sometimes you hear they're not so nice. Sometimes a guy like Tony Danza, I have never met a human being in my life that has said Tony Danza wasn't nice. I mean, never in decades of knowing human beings. And I've never, ever heard anybody say that he was anything but kind in every circumstance. With Chevy Chase, it's the exact opposite. I've never heard anybody say a nice thing about him. So that's neither here nor there. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my wife, who is driving to the airport, even though she's working today, to go pick up her brother, my brother-in-law, David, and his family, who are coming in from California. So she's said she's so glad she tuned in just in time to hear someone screaming about Project 2025, which is not her speed at all. We'll get to your calls in a sec, 646-720-0635. But yeah, we got a busy weekend coming up. On Friday, I am actually going to try and be at Tony Lobianco's funeral. I think it's at St. Pat's actually in the morning. And then I'm going to take the train out to Queens, and my wife will pick me up on the way to Eastern Long Island, where we're going to spend the day because her brother's in town. And then Saturday, I'm going to another funeral. Actually, it's a celebration of life. The funeral is Friday night. But because I'm out on Long Island, going to another funeral for my friend's mom, who on Saturday at the celebration of life, because she'd been sick for a while, unfortunately, and it's not a surprise. But I was quite fond of his mom. She was actually also she was a school lunch aide back when I went to school as well. So I actually knew his mom even before I knew my friend, but it's a close friend. So I'm going to do that Saturday morning. And then we have plans, weather permitting, to go see the New York Mets, who I have to tell you, they have become an exciting team to watch this year. I am loving what I am seeing from the New York Metropolitans. They have a winning record. A month or two ago, I don't know that you could have said that they were going to have a winning record. So it's very, very exciting that they're getting hot just around the right time. So we'll see. I mean, still a long ways away from catching the Phillies, but you know, they're learning they're knowing how to play baseball again. Last week, we went to my dad's on Sunday, and you know, because it was going to be the last day that I saw my brother and his longtime companion before they left for Europe. So we went there, spent the day there, and it was fun. I talked about some of the experiences we had. But honestly, when I do something on a Sunday that involves something other than being home and working and maybe going to church, it takes me 3 days to recover, because I have to then cram to get the work that's necessary in for the show. And I have to try and squeeze in some sleep, and my whole schedule is thrown off. It's already tough on Sunday because you transition from a normal schedule to a nocturnal schedule anyway, but then to add having to be somewhere, anywhere. And I said, after last Sunday, I told my wife and anybody else who would listen, I said, I am done. I am done going to events on Sundays. I'm not going to anything anymore on Sundays. Done. And it's my sister-in-law's birthday party on Sunday. Not going. A lot of my in-laws are going to Six Flags Great Adventure on Sunday. Not going. Can't do it.
How dare you?
So I had forgotten that a close friend of mine for 25 years reached out to me and said, she moved to Florida, like most New Yorkers. She moved to Florida. She said she's coming to New York and she's appearing in a play. And there's 3 showings of this play. One was yesterday, which obviously I couldn't make. The next is Friday, which I can't make because I'm going to be at funerals and on Long Island. And then the next is Sunday. Now, the only conceivable day that I could go to this is Sunday. Now, I really don't want to go to this, I'll be honest. But this is a close friend, and she was at our wedding, and somebody I have known forever. She would give me such a hard time if this play showed 3 times upon her return to New York, and I couldn't make the time to see one of these showings.
Jesus, Frank.
So I'm in the midst of a quandary here of how to handle this. Do I suck it up and go to this play on Sunday, or do I maintain my ban, which is all of 5 days old, of not doing anything on Sundays? That's kind of what I'm dealing with. But we'll see. Unlike a baseball game, there's no chance that a play could be rained out. So this play's happening. That's where I am. 646-720-0635. If you want to comment, 646 720-0635. You know what I could do? I'm wondering, maybe I can get a stand-in to attend the play, and then I just show up at the very end and greet May backstage. I get the Cliff Notes version on what the play was, and then I will go and greet her. May, that was great. That was terrific. That would save me some time. If you're interested in being the stand-in for that play, let me know. Email me, frank.morano@redappleaudionetworks.com. Ed, what is on your mind, my friend?
Hey, Frank. I just wanted to say, in relation to a previous call that was comparing IVF to abortion, I think it's ludicrous to compare the two. I think with IVF, the people that have IVF, including myself with 3 children, we have a true desire to have the children.
Right. That's why I view it as such a difference.
Right. And the odds, unfortunately, the odds are better when you have more embryos, implanted, and you get better results. So that's why oftentimes there are embryos that don't make it. But, obviously an abortion is a different story. You can agree or disagree, but I think you got to be able to separate.
Look, Mike Pence, people can love him or hate him, but he's one of the most socially conservative guys there is, including on the issue of abortion, and governed that way, voted that way, and his children were all born via IVF, as I understand it. So I really do think there's a tremendous difference between IVF and abortion. I don't even think it's comparable, honestly. I think I understand what Jacqueline is saying. I'm not belittling at all what she was saying. And, it's an issue of conscience for her, clearly. But I personally, I don't view it as even in the same ballpark.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it. Congratulations on those 3 children. 646-720-0635. George Washington, an amazing discovery involving him. And is it possible that we're still making discoveries about the Battle of Bunker Hill and the shot heard around the world? Answer, yes. I'll tell you about it straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Raspberry Beret by the artist formerly known as Prince. This is a bumper music selection from our listener of the week, Michael Scott Cutler, and a great selection it is. All right. We all remember from history class the shot heard around the world, the battles of Lexington and Concord. I think I said I said Bunker Hill before, but Lexington and Concord is where the Revolutionary War began, as anybody that watched 1776 last weekend knows. And now I think this is really cool. And my Uncle Steve, if he's listening, would just love this. The National Park Service has announced that they have found 5 musket balls on the site at the Revolutionary War's opening event, the Lexington and Concord battleground. Almost 250 years ago, British soldiers marched in search of military supplies stockpiled by colonial rebels in Massachusetts, and tension turned to bloodshed. with the battles at the towns of Lexington and Concord that began the Revolutionary War. The fighting in Concord was, of course, immortalized by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He's the one that coined that term, the shot heard around the world. Well, National Park Service archaeologists recently found 5 musket balls fired that day by colonial militia members. That's the word from a news release from the federal agency. I think this is way cool. Jared Fuis, a ranger at the Minuteman National Historical Park, said, quote, "It's incredible that we can stand here and hold what amounts to just a few seconds of history that changed the world almost 250 years ago. These musket balls," this is what Jared Fuis is saying, "these musket balls can be considered collectively as the shot heard round the world. And it's incredible that they've survived this long." Yeah, I really think it is. I think this is really interesting. All right, 646-720-0635. Liz is in Florida. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Frank.
Hi.
You need to be cloned. But, you have to take care of yourself, and it's also really important that you do the right thing. So if you don't go to these events, just write a nice letter and explain how hard it is at this time. That you really should understand.
Well, I do that, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that I don't end up, I'm not able to always go to. And I always try to, do the right thing somehow, especially if I have to miss a wedding or something. But I still end up feeling bad for not attending. But yeah, I would like a clone. Thank you, Liz. My wife's listening to the radio booing the fact that there could be a second Frank Morano running around somewhere. So I don't think a clone is in the offing anytime soon. Hey, speaking of the Revolutionary War, as we learned from Lindsay Chervinsky, one of the people that played a pretty pivotal role in that conflict was none other than George Washington. Here is another one of these stories that I just love. An artifact that originally belonged to George Washington recently landed into the hands of a Virginia history enthusiast and then a museum, all thanks to goodwill. This is why I'm always saying we can't throw anything away. The piece is currently on display in the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia. Collector Richard Dana Moore stumbled across the artifact, which is a 6-inch long piece of linen fabric from Washington's dining marquee, or, his tent. And he came upon it on Goodwill's auction site. The fabric was auctioned off with a note that read, quote, "A piece of George Washington's tent from the History Building at Jamestown, Exposition 1907, property of John Burns, December 23rd, 07. So while most of Moore's collection is made up of Civil War artifacts, he's got some Revolutionary War stuff as well. How cool is that? That this guy bought this fabric from George Washington's tent from an auction site for $1,300. I think that is awesome. Awesome. Talk about holding history in your hand. I think that's great. Catherine is in New Jersey. Hi, Catherine. Catherine. Norman is in Brooklyn. Hello, Norman.
Hey, Frank. Frank, you were talking about this battlefield where somebody left like 5 musket balls, but where they found 5 musket balls attributed to the shot heard around the world. I can just tell you that I collect antique military, and I've been doing so since I'm 14 years old. Civil War, World War II. Anyway, I have known over the years people that go, this is completely unethical, that go to battlefields, in which case I know somebody who went near Gettysburg and would put, they called it seeding the battlefield. They would like to fool the tourists and the newspapers by putting, musket balls and things like that on the ground so that tourists go, oh my God, this came from the battle. And so I can't see how these forensic department people.
I have to end it there. Thank you. I just because of the interest of time. I agree it's hard to believe, but I can't see these archaeologists being fooled by what you're describing. I don't think so. Help control the pet population. Get your dog or cat spayed or neutered.